Hello, everyone. We'll get started here in a minute. Hey, Troy, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. We'll get started here in a little bit. What are you guys seeing on the screen right now?
You got my webinar, my presentation.
Okay, we'll give it here another 2 minutes here so everyone gets on. For the people that are on, welcome. We'll get started here in one moment. Just to give it time for all participants to log on. Okay, I have 2 minutes after 10, so we'll get started. Hello, I'm Dan Nickey with the Iowa Waste Reduction Center, located at the University of Northern Iowa. I'll be your host today. First of all, can my panelists, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? All right, great. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. This is IWR's first energy assistance webinar. The webinar is funded through a grant from the Iowa Economic Development Authority's energy program. We have a great agenda today. Our speakers will be Troy Van Beek from Ideal Energy. He will be presenting on some of their great energy saving projects. Emily Rice from the Energy Group will be presenting on private funding options for energy savings projects. And Kristen Kaufman from the United States Department of Agriculture will be discussing funding opportunities from USDA on energy saving projects. Let's go over some real quick housekeeping protocols. Normally in an in-person workshop, I'd be telling you where the bathrooms are and the fire exits are, but obviously this is not applicable, so we will be going over some housekeeping options for Zoom webinars. We have over 70 participants registered today. All the participants will be muted and video off. The speakers will have control of their presentations. Participants will have the opportunity to ask questions through the question and answer feature, not the chat feature. Please send all your questions through the question and answer feature you'll find in Zoom, and we will answer all the questions at the end of all the speakers at the end of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded. All slides will be available to participants in about a week. An evaluation form will be sent to all participants later today or tomorrow morning. Please complete the webinar evaluation. It's really important because we'd like to do some more of these and we want to get your feedback. So let's get right into the webinar. I have unshared my screen, and Troy will be our first speaker. Troy is from Ideal Energy, and he'll be talking about some of their great projects. Troy, if you want to share your screen with the audience, and we'll get into your PowerPoint.
Okay, I seem to, let's see here. Somehow I have lost the, oh, hold on a second. escape out of this.
Go to share.
Go to.
If you hover over Dan's image, there should be like a menu at the bottom, Troy.
Yep.
And the share screen to me looks green. So it's kind of bottom right a little bit.
No,
That
not to it. I apologize. Let's see here. Okay, so share screen. You'll have to tell me if this is the correct one.
Okay, we're getting something now, Troy. Now just go into presentation mode.
All right. Is that the right screen?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. We were all prepared, and then something happened. But I think we're ready to go now. Thank you to the organizers, of course, and to all the participants. This is really exciting. It's extraordinarily exciting time at times right now for renewable energy. I think everybody's thinking about it more and more. It seems that with the pending Armageddon that seems to always be looming over us with pandemic and everything else, renewables just seems to come front and center as an excellent opportunity.
Hey,
Yep.
Troy, I don't mean to interrupt, but we're seeing your notes page.
Yeah, okay, so let me, I think there's a swap here. Is that better?
Here you go.
All right. All right, so so this is just really an excellent opportunity. If we're talking about energy savings, then this is a fantastic way to do that. Renewables is really taken front and center right now. And we've got, everything is just coming together for renewables as far as the technology, the tax credits, the price, the financing options. And then it's just exciting because of the new technology that is coming, that's available to us. And we've been doing our very best, being front and center of all that I just mentioned. So without further ado, I will get into a little bit of what the context of this presentation is going to be. I'm going to talk a little bit about Ideal Energy to give you an idea of who we are, and then go over the applications of energy storage, energy storage projects, and then we'll go over a couple of those projects, being our project with the university, Mauritia University of Management, and then Agri-Industrial Plastics Company. And then we'll talk a little bit about the future opportunities for the exciting world of renewables. So to talk a little bit about Ideal Energy, we actually formed up in 2009. We're a veteran-owned company. We've been in business for about 11 years. We're actually one of the very first solar companies in the state. We did a lot of heavy lifting as part of that process. And it's been exciting times and difficult times, I'll have to say, because there is a lot of work that we've done, a lot of educational stuff that we've done to get it to the point that it is now. But it's been an exciting process. My background is with the US Navy SEAL teams. So I've spent about 12 years of military and paramilitary operations around the world. And I would have to say, because of that is probably why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing now. I was involved in world security. I had before I finished up in that world, I had my own security company in Africa. And prior to that, I was in Afghanistan, and I was working for the Department of State, one of the lead snipers on protecting Hamid Karzai in Afghanistan, so the president of Afghanistan. But what I come to the conclusion that energy is generally, historically, the cause for war. And so coming back to the US, coming back to the Midwest, studying sustainability, studying energy has just really helped me fulfill my mission of world security. And, you know, it starts in our communities, but we're looking at the state value, the nation value, and the world value that this brings. One of the big things that, you know, we've come to realize is that we're automating this world. We're in a new transition to how the economy works, and the energy revolution is part of that. Because as we automate more, we need to power that automation. We can do that now through renewables. Elon Musk has said that 100 miles by 100 miles would power our nation. And so we have that technology, we have the capability of doing that. We just need the political will and people's involvement to make this happen. It's here, it's available now. So we are NABCEP certified. We're at a multi-award winning company. We always look at projects that we can put front and center, that we can communicate the efforts that we're putting into this and are highly publicizable. We have a PR marketing, you know, capable when we get them out there, because it's our mission to really educate everybody. So we're always looking for that leading edge. There's a lot of firsts that we've had in the state. Like I said, we look for those unique projects. We're a partner with the state of Iowa. So we're front and center. I'm on the ISETA board. We've been on the battery energy storage board for the state. ISETA is Iowa Solar Energy Trade Association. So we're part of policy as it's formed in the state of Iowa. And there's a lot of opportunity here in Iowa to really perpetuate renewables. And as you probably already know, the state of Iowa is actually powered about 40% by wind, and an increasing amount by solar now. So we have all the opportunity in the world to be a leader in the nation. Right now, we're about second in wind. The solar integration that is now really taking hold, plus some of the other things that I'm going to talk about in this presentation, make it an exciting place for sustainability leadership for the state of Iowa. So I'll get into a couple of the applications of energy storage. So when talking about battery energy storage, the real advantage of that is with peak shaving. I'll get into it a little bit more, but there was a release from NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, that ranks Iowa in the top 10 of the nation for the opportunity for battery energy storage because of large peak demand. So all the manufacturers, these large users of energy, they have these really high demand rates. So because of the peak, the utility company has to charge you for the energy that you would need at any given time. So if you have just even a small peak throughout the day, they have to charge you for that going forward, because they have to be prepared to deliver that energy to you at any given time. So by utilizing batteries, we can actually curtail that peak and reduce a large percentage of the utility costs. So that's a real advantage of utilizing battery energy storage. In load shifting is where you have different prices on energy. We can take that low cost energy, store it, and then give it back when it's very expensive. And then there's energy backup. So that is in situations like data centers, food production, hospitals, where they cannot go down. They can utilize that battery energy storage to be prepared. And in combination with solar, that's an excellent combination to reduce costs, but also keep that energy running when the grid goes down. Because if you weren't aware, solar alone doesn't allow you to keep that solar up when the grid goes down. It's part of the safety measures, so that that energy that you typically feed to the grid and pull back when you need it, if you were doing that when the grid was down, you could shock the workers that are out on the lines. So you have to have that separated from the grid. With a battery, you can do that. You simulate that grid with the battery, and then the solar can come up, and it has that automatic transfer switch to allow you to do that. Microgrids, with a microgrid situation, real good opportunities for that would be like military bases. They have a lot of functions on their campus, and you can separate all those off so that it's being powered by generators, by batteries, by solar, and you can create that microgrid. And it's not only like military bases, but also communities and beyond. That's an extra security measure that I think that will be looked at more and more as we progress our energy, this new energy paradigm, that we'll be separating more of the grids off so that if there are issues with the grid, these opportunities to have the smaller microgrids, we can keep them up and running when other aspects of the grid is down. Renewable integration, that means that like in Iowa, we have 40% of our energy being produced by wind. Now, when that wind is blowing really hard, that energy has to go somewhere. So that's being pushed through the grid, and there'll be areas they call nodes where that energy starts to hit a bit of a funnel. So it gets pushed into these areas and it can only handle so much. So they have to curtail that energy and either shut down those wind turbines or they have to put batteries in place and store that energy when it's in excess and feed it back when it is needed, when the wind is dying down or the solar is dying down. So that integration of energy storage in those areas is an excellent opportunity to really balance the grid in the way that it needs to be. So there's really no excuse now. Earlier on, it was thought that, well, the sun is only shining some of the time, the wind is only blowing some of the time, but the integration of energy storage really makes that full transition quite easy. So this is $1 trillion market in the battery energy storage. It's incredible, the revolution that is happening, the technology that is really showing itself right now, and more will be integrating that into the grid. And then of course, grid services, adjusting power factor, utilizing batteries as capacitors really can make that grid energy more stable. It's better on electronics. There's just a lot of opportunity to balance that grid in general when there are multiple sources of energy production on that grid. So to get in some of our projects, we'll talk about Maharishi University of Management first. And this project is a solar and storage project. It was 1.1 megawatts of solar energy. It's done with a tracker and in combination with 1 megawatt hour of vanadium flow batteries. So this was a very unique project when we did it. Utilizing the vanadium flow batteries in combination with the artificial intelligence and the tracker made it unique enough that we had articles written in China and in Europe. It got us a lot of attention. We actually were able to strike a deal with Royal Dutch Shell, one of the leading energy companies in the world, where they're becoming more and more interested in their transition and implementation of more renewables into their portfolio. So they wanted to work with us, and I would contribute that to the work that we were doing with battery energy storage. So the interesting aspects of this is that we do have the active tracking, which means that in the morning, it'll be facing, these trackers will be facing east as you see them in this picture. And then throughout the day, as the energy or the sun goes across the sky, those trackers will follow that sun into the west in the evening. So that gives you high shoulders of energy right away in the morning. It means instead of a bell curve, it spikes right up and follows that sun through the day and then drops down in the evening. So you get much more power production out of that solar array. This is optimized, so it's always adjusting its algorithms to get the most out of that battery energy storage on when and why it should be delivering that energy. So it's always prepared to deliver when it's needed. There are weather stations on this array, meaning on all the corners, it's keeping an eye on the weather. If it's high winds, it'll stow the panels in, flat or to the west, depending on the type of wind that it is, making it more secure. And then it also is looking at snow shedding. So in the winter, if it's always shooting a laser at the ground, and if it starts to build up a certain, that laser distance starts to decrease, it'll drop the panels so that they go flat, straight down, and it'll shed that snow, giving it more production throughout the year. And then we actually had a pollinator project as part of this as well. So we added in a seed mix to bring in the bees and the butterflies. So an extra level of sustainability on that project made us really happy and pleased the owners of the project considerably. So, and this is a state research project. We are a trusted partner with the state as being on the Battery Energy Storage Committee, and then being able to implement several projects that we're submitting the data publicly so that they can see the advantages of the battery energy storage opportunities. So this is just an overview. We did write white papers about this project, and this is part of those white papers, some of the materials I'm just going to show you. On the bottom of this project, I don't know if you see my cursor or not, but this is where the substation is. And the project is 3/4 of a mile across campus in this direction over here. So we actually did a directional bore underneath the entire campus to bring that all the way to the substation. And I point that out because you don't necessarily have to be right next to the meter to make this work. Of course, it has to be sized appropriately to be able to transmit that energy, that distance. But we did it in such a way that we could actually increase this array. Right now, the university is powered by, it's about 40% of its energy is being provided by renewables. We've got several smaller projects at the university to include a wind turbine and then some smaller solar arrays over here. But in total, it's about 40% of the campus's usage. And we built this array so that we can actually double or triple it as needed to supply 100% of the campus's energy in the near future. And this just gives you a little better diagram of the weather stations and where they're located on this array. The batteries that I can point out right here. You can see the size of these, and I'll show you the difference between this type of battery and lithium ion when I talk about agri-industrial plastics. There is something unique about these batteries, as there's very little degradation over an extended life period of the batteries. Just keeping up with the annual service, they really will have zero degradation over the life of the battery. So it makes them very unique, and they work well with the campus load. With lithium ion batteries, they're more like your power drills. You can get maximum energy very fast when you need it. These deliver it a little slower. So it works well with the need of this campus, but they also will maintain a longer lifespan. That's about it for that. A little bit more about the batteries themselves. The inverter, this goes DC energy from the solar panels directly into the batteries as DC energy storage. And then the inverter will convert that to AC power as needed by the campus load. And then we transform that energy and then truck it over the distribution lines to the campus where it's needed. Just a little quick note about the communications, the communications and weather stations. They're all powered by their own solar panels, so they're not dependent on the array itself, but they are constantly giving the data that it needs to continue its operations. And then, of course, the pollinator project was a big hit and has really gone off well, and I highly recommend that for future projects. We do look at that for other projects that we're doing. It makes it better for the maintenance as it doesn't grow the tall weeds. These are specifically designed pollinator project for the locale that we're working in, and also so that they grow to the height that is needed for that particular array. And of course, the fact that we're promoting the bees and the butterflies is just fantastic. So just kind of going over the campus load and how this works with the batteries. We have the solar production right here, and typically this is the blue line is where the campus load is, and what we're trying to do is secure so that the load goes no higher than the black line here, and that's the idea with the batteries kicking on, because the load peak is actually after the peak sun, so we can store that energy, and then in that evening where there is still that peak, we've driven down the blue line with the solar, but in the evening we can actually utilize that battery to maintain that low level of peak, and then therefore minimizing that truly expensive energy, which is in that peak, and reduce the overall cost of that bill. Because generally with a demand rate, your base rate is only a couple cents, but that peak rate is really what gives you the total cost of your bill. That's the expensive energy. So by utilizing those batteries, we can totally minimize the expense of that energy bill. And of course, it helps in balancing the grid and all the other wonderful things that I talked about earlier. Let's see here. So moving on to Agri-Industrial plastics. We were really happy to work with Lori Schaefer-Wheaton. She's just a fantastic person and was dedicated to the community and to this project. She knew the value of it. This was actually one of the first Tesla projects in the state. Tesla is just a very excellent partner because we truly believe in that battery technology. It's being utilized in all the vehicles. That's exactly the same battery that they're utilizing, the vehicles that we're utilizing in this project. So this is actually one of the largest rooftop solar arrays in the state for commercial projects. So this is a 517 kilowatt project, 1,345 individual solar panels. And then we utilized a 212 kilowatt, 424 kilowatt hour energy storage system from Tesla. And it looks just like this. And these are the modules. This is the inverter. And these two units are the battery packs that go along with it. And so with that project, you'll see here, this is actually a better description of the battery. We're only looking at about 4 to 6% of their energy reduction in this, but it gives them a significant reduction in their overall energy costs because of that high peak demand. And we probably saw in this project a very fast payback, actually more than we predicted up front. So in this slide, let me see, I gotta move some of these pictures around here. You can see we kind of predicted a 67-year payback. We probably ended up with a 3-year payback because of some new changes in the tariffs to the utility costs. And that really gave an excellent payback, which was, I'm sure, very pleasing to Agri-Industrial Plastics. And of course, they benefit for more than just the energy savings. It's the notoriety of the project itself, and the attraction of the millennial generation as a workforce. And I think everybody feels that as a business owner, how valuable it is to be able to attract new employees. And Lori had just said that this is really important to her. She's done a fantastic job with their company. They're technologically driven, automation is really high within their company. And this was just another aspect of that. She wanted to show that they're leaders in technology. Let's see here. Okay, so a couple slides on the profile for agri-industrial plastics. We have the solar production, their typical load and their peak demand, and we're trying to reduce that. So you can see their peak demand falls outside of the peak sun. And again, that's how we did with the university. We had the opportunity to reduce that with the batteries, bringing it down to that lower level. Our target limit is what we're shooting for, and that's what we achieve with the combination of the solar and the battery. So there's about 4 to 5% with just the direct solar, and then with the batteries, we'll have an additional 6% in total with the increased reduction with the battery. So that is what is giving their performance to this. And with the artificial intelligence of the battery, it's constantly looking at how the loads are being adjusted, and it learns more and more as time goes by. So again, Lori, just fantastic. You can see her shop here, very automated. She just has really great employees working for her, and she's just trying to maintain that superiority in her field. And working with Lori, we wanted to make sure that we publicize her sustainability leadership. We actually got her into Plastics Machinery magazine, as we've done with quite a few of our clients. It's always great to be able to publicize the sustainability leadership. It's good for the companies that we're working with, the clients, of course, the communities, and the industry at large. So we really like to promote that. And this particular project, because we were a partner with the state on this, we had the governor there, Lori, myself, Debbie Durham, and Brian Sellinger, and Josh Larrabee from FEDA. So we have Iowa Economic Development Authority there, and Fairfield Economic Development Authority from Fairfield here. All came together to really make this project incredible. And we had just a great turnout when we did the ribbon cutting ceremony for them. So all these projects are great, but how do we get them, to pencil out? The great thing right now is what has really come together is financing for these projects. So what we're seeing in a lot of our projects is we're getting below 5-year paybacks. So we're talking about these multi-million-dollar saving opportunities for our clients. And, they might be $1 million, it might be a $4 million project. It might be less, of course, with residential. It can be anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000. But some of these large manufacturings, they can be big projects. So to make a purchase of that, if the company can afford it, direct purchase always has the highest return. But because these returns are so good with these projects, if you have the tax appetite, the opportunity to do a 7-year loan through us, you actually can do this project with no money out of pocket, stay cash positive, and because of the tax returns right now it's 26% from the federal government and an additional 15% from the state, up to a max of $20,000 for commercial businesses. And that opportunity means that you've put no money out, there's no money down for that financing, and you'll save that money from the taxes. So all of that depreciation value, which can be depreciated in the first year, all that the tax savings, that is cash in your hand that you don't have to pay to the government. That stays in your pocket, increases your overall revenue, and gives you more cash to invest into other things. So it's just a total win-win. You benefit from all the PR opportunity that you can from renewables, the energy savings, and of course, just having that cash on hand. And you can stay cash positive throughout that 7 years. a lot of these projects are penciling that way. So just excellent financing opportunities. And if it's a matter of not wanting to even have it on your books, there's third parties that we can bring in over a similar 7-year program. They take advantage of the tax credits. So if you're fully depreciated and you don't have the opportunity for the tax credits, we bring in a financing partner and they take advantage of all that. And oftentimes we're very close to no money out of pocket, no money over the 7 years as well, and it gets turned over to you. So this, usually there's some money, throughout that maybe you're paying a little bit every month for that energy. But depending on your particular project, this can be an excellent opportunity to have very little out of pocket for the solar array itself. So both opportunities, all three of these opportunities are absolutely incredible. And it really speaks to the fact that there's just no reason not to be going forward with renewables right now because of the impact that it has on your business, on the community, on the state, on the nation, on the world. So I mentioned this earlier, that because of a report that was done by the Renewable Energy Laboratory out of Denver, Colorado, one of the world's leading testing facilities. They did a report that Iowa actually ranks in the top 10 in the nation for the high demand charges, which makes a real opportunity for renewables to pencil out very well and to really benefit these clients. But because of that, it also is an opportunity for this future-facing technology that you will, if you haven't heard about, you'll hear more about now that I've mentioned it. Renewables is something that kind of took hold. Bush Jr. was actually promoting renewables, and then 9/11, or hydrogen, and then 9/11 hit, and it kind of got sidelined. So we were looking to put it in California considerably at that time, and now because of 9/11 it was sidelined, but it's really making its mark now. The cost of renewables has come down, so the production of hydrogen can be done through renewables, which is now called green hydrogen. Because Ideal Energy has been a trusted partner of the state of Iowa previously, we suggested that we could do the research on hydrogen in the state of Iowa. And I'm working with one of the top scientists in this field of hydrogen, a former director from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. He's working directly with Ideal Energy to do the research on hydrogen in the state of Iowa. So as you see in this map, we fit right into the wind belt. And again, we said that Iowa is powered about 40% of its energy through wind. Now, when that wind is blowing hard, oftentimes you have to curtail that energy because those electrons have to go someplace. So you'll see wind turbines shut down. And so that means that cost of energy is plummeting. So there's really low cost of energy very inherent in those wind turbines when they are curtailed. So instead of curtailing and shutting those off, we want to store that energy either in some type of battery energy storage or potentially in hydrogen. And that's what we're looking at, is that opportunity in hydrogen. And so, went backwards there. So there was a report done by NREL that showed the opportunity in the potential for hydrogen production in the state of Iowa. So these just point out the opportunities to utilize that hydrogen through synthetic fuels, and because of the ammonia production that is currently happening in the state of Iowa. We have a number of ammonia production facilities, and ammonia is produced through the use of hydrogen, and hydrogen is produced through a process called steam methane reform. And it's actually extraordinarily carbon intensive. So being able to switch that to low cost energy being produced through renewables and produce that hydrogen, which is really just a splitting of the molecules in water, and can be done through electrolysis, through renewable energy, we can produce low-cost hydrogen. And that cost has come down, and our studies are showing that the cost that we were predicting it needed to be at, we're at now, at this time frame. So, and this energy, or this opportunity through hydrogen is really just evolving. So it's very exciting time for the opportunity. And as you see, Iowa is specifically has a fantastic opportunity to evolve this technology. So not only are we a leader in wind, but the second half of the big energy paradigm that can't be covered through electricity is now available to us through hydrogen. So we can actually completely decarbonize our energy portfolio at this point. So it just needs to be pushed. It needs to be further studied, which is what we're doing. But the applications are just fantastic. So typically we utilize nuclear and fossil fuels for our energy production that goes into the grid. But by producing hydrogen, we actually can add that to the generation of the grid through turbine generation, supporting and reducing the need for the other sources of fuel. And it can be utilized in heating, in metal refinery, in the ammonia production. And just to clarify how we produce ammonia out of hydrogen is that we take that hydrogen and then we add in nitrogen, which is 80% of the air we breathe. So it's readily accessible for us. And we add in that nitrogen, and that's how we produce ammonia. And the value, obviously, in Iowa is that ammonia is utilized as a fertilizer. It's also utilized as an energy carrier for that hydrogen. It can be pumped directly into these natural gas pipelines and extracted on different ends of the pipeline. Hydrogen can be pumped directly in at about 25% of the natural gas pipeline without making any adjustments into the power generation facilities. So there's just a ton of opportunity there. It's utilized heavily in metal refining. It can be utilized in the refining of petroleum oils, in synthetic fuels, and of course in hydrogen vehicles. So the real value that it's hard to convert to the battery energy storage is with the trucking industry, those really high energy devices that are out there, applications like semi-trucks. We can go further with more power with hydrogen. And I know everybody often thinks about hydrogen. We think about the accidents that have happened in the past, but hydrogen is actually utilized quite often as it is currently in the ammonia production. It's handled very safely. Technology has really progressed in hydrogen storage. So it has to be handled correctly, but of course we drive around with gas in our vehicles currently, and it's part of that process. So it just needs to be handled correctly. So I think I just kind of blasted through this. I threw a lot at you, and I imagine there's probably some questions. So if you do, I'd be happy to answer any questions now.
Troy, we're going to hold questions till the end, but please your questions in the question and answer feature here at the bottom, and then we'll go through, and Troy will be on until the end, and we'll do the questions after the last speaker, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, so if you'll unshare your screen, Troy, we are going to have Emily be the next presenter. Emily Rice is with the Energy Group, and she'll be presenting on some funding opportunities. So Emily, if you'll share your screen.
Yep. All right. And we'll go from the beginning.
And Troy, you might want to put yourself on mute, just.
Okay.
Oops. Hang on.
Okay, you're good to go, Emily.
Yeah, thanks. I'm trying to figure out how to move everyone's faces. Okay. Yeah. I'll echo Troy and say thanks to those hosting and everyone who chose to attend today. My name is Emily Rice. I'm COO with the Energy Group. We are a consulting firm here in Des Moines, Iowa. I've been in the energy industry for 11 years. I've been here at the Energy Group for that time. I serve on the Governor's Building Code Advisory Council, the Iowa Association for Energy Efficiency Board, been on that board for a number of years. And my role at the Energy Group here has evolved since I started as a program delivery consultant out of college. I will give you guys a little bit of an introduction to the Energy Group before I get started. We have been around for about 30 plus years. We work on projects big and small for a wide mix of companies. Some of the current projects in our portfolio include working with the Iowa Economic Development Authority on a number of grants. We just wrapped up a solar water heating application grant, and we're currently working on a district geothermal grant. Earlier this summer, we worked on a sensitivity analysis for combining heat and power at industrial sites across the state. We deliver Iowa's investor-owned utility program for income-qualified multifamily properties across the state of Iowa. We've managed and administered that program for a number of years. We also manage, currently are working with Danfoss Power Solutions, managing a multi-million-dollar energy efficiency package at their plant in Illinois. And we are advising and performing services for multiple Iowa school districts, including Des Moines Public Schools. If you're not familiar, they have been an Energy Star Partner of the Year award winner for a number of years, and we've been very proud of our partnership with DMPS. That's just a few of the things that we're working on. We provide a number of services from concept through testing post-construction for singular projects or whole building retrofits. We also do design assistance for new construction. So as a consultant, we are advocates for energy efficiency. And Troy mentioned this, that there is a connection between security and energy efficiency and sustainability, renewable energy. And we believe in that. We also very much believe in energy efficiency as a powerful economic driver, not just for communities and the economy, but it's a really, really powerful tool for businesses to remain competitive, to stay ahead of the curve, and make sure they have enough money in their budgets to grow. So with that, I will get us started. So I've been charged with kind of covering some financing options for energy investments, but as an energy professional, I'd be remiss if I didn't focus on properly preparing for energy investment, which includes comprehensive energy analysis at your facility or facilities, and making a strong business case for those investments and doing your homework. And then I'll get into some different financing vehicles that exist and provide resources throughout the presentation, but also some resources at the end that folks can check into. I'll go ahead and start a timer here so I don't get go too much over. Okay, so the first step in preparing for an investment is really your energy analysis. It's measuring the performance of your building. And obviously at the Energy Group, we do this quite a bit, but I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means. So ultimately, to get the biggest bang for your buck, oh, hang on, I want to backtrack really quickly, just so I can get an idea about you guys that are in the audience. So if you can, I'm not sure I know how to see your results. Okay. Never mind, I'm gonna skip that. I don't know how to see your results, but I'm hoping that some of you folks, we've got a good mix of people that either have energy professionals on staff, have performed an energy audit in the past, or have implemented a project in the past. I tried to do my best, touching on, various points of view so that you guys can benefit regardless of kind of where you are in terms of energy efficiency and your knowledge. Okay, so when it comes to comprehensive energy analysis, it's really important to get the biggest bang for your buck. So whether you have a singular project in mind already, let's say your boiler is failing, or you have, your equipment replacement schedule says it's time to replace something at your facility, it's really important that you take a step back and do this comprehensive analysis if you're not already doing it regularly. There's a number of advantages to this, and I'll get into that in a minute. But really, your analysis can be performed by somebody internally if you have a qualified professional on staff and you have the time, or you can use a third party. There's like us, but there's a lot of energy professionals that you can look to. I've provided some credentials that you guys can look for, but hiring somebody who is an energy professional is going to ensure that, you know, they're looking at emerging technologies that are coming out. Just like Troy was talking about in his presentation, you know, they're focusing not just on, you know, their bread and butter, the solar panels that they install, but also looking what's the next and best thing that we can be doing here in the state of Iowa. So most energy professionals are going to have their finger on that pulse. You do want to make sure, regardless, that you're getting an independent and unbiased study. Now, this isn't just wise, because you want to make sure that, you know, when you're testing in and testing out and you know exactly what the impact of your investment is, it is a requirement of many financial programs and opportunities to have an independent third party performing the analysis and making sure that you are actually achieving the results that were estimated at the beginning. And so, so start with a comprehensive energy analysis, and I've got a little bit more information on that as well. So all audits are not equal. Comprehensive analysis can be anything from, you know, a level 1 audit all the way through level 3. ASHRAE provides this kind of guidelines so you can understand the different levels of analysis that exist. The larger the project, the wider the scope, the more complicated your projects are, the more complicated the analysis really needs to be. We don't ever go into surgery without necessary tests to justify an operation. Same goes for investing into your facility. You really want to make sure that the decisions that you're making have both short and long-term considerations. So you want to pick the appropriate level of analysis, not just for the project at hand, but again, I'll get into some options later, but depending on the financing program or whatever opportunities that you're leveraging to help fund your project, there may be requirements for certain levels of analysis. So it's important to at least be knowledgeable about how these exist. The preliminary energy use analysis is really just benchmarking. Most folks can do that in-house. There are firms that will do this for you, but getting a benchmark is just taking your total energy use per square foot and then comparing that with other like buildings. And there's lots of information, but there's tables available so you can just see where you stack up. And it goes all the way through, you know, full engineering and design for these projects, so you can really get a good idea about what the project is gonna do for you. Okay. So, sorry, this video is like in the way. All right. So, it's necessary to pick the right level of analysis because you want to make sure that you have the right information for planning. Planning and benchmarking is going to include, you know, prioritizing your projects, integrating with your equipment replacement schedule and other goals and processes that you might have in place. The components of comprehensive energy analysis, whether you're doing new construction or a retrofit, are here on the right. You've got planning, benchmarking, goal setting. You know, diagnostic testing and energy modeling will be for more of your complex projects. Any energy professional is going to include economic analysis in your audit. This is really important because it's going to be evaluating the impact of your project. It's taking into account your current utility rate, things that are going to really make and break your project that you might not be thinking of. And I'm sure most of you have heard of this before, garbage in, garbage out. The better the analysis, the more detailed the analysis is up front, the smoother the planning and designing is going to be, and the more successful your project is going to be ultimately. It's also a lot easier to secure third-party financing and qualify for certain programs if you've done your homework and you have really good, reliable, comprehensive analysis at the onset of your project. So this is just kind of doing that 80-20, you know, really overdoing it in the beginning because it's going to help everything go a lot smoother in the throughout the process of implementing your project. Okay. So a few things that comprehensive analysis will do. One, it's going to establish a baseline for your building. It measures the performance of your building. It's looking at all building operating systems, as well as the occupants and the kind of folks that are charged with running those systems, as well as using the building. This is essential for measuring how effective your investments are. And it really is a starting point for measurement and verification once your project is constructed. It also helps to identify low and no cost options that can pave the way for larger investments later. There could be things that you've overlooked or you haven't done yet. And so it's always important to just know everything that's on the table before you get started. Having a comprehensive analysis is also going to reveal the most cost-effective options. Our building systems interact with each other. A lighting project is going to impact your cooling load. There's a number of different building systems that talk to each other and work with each other. When you improve your envelope, for example, then that might lower the size of the heating and cooling system that you're going to need. I will note here that it is especially important before investing in renewable energy systems that you have done a comprehensive energy analysis. You know what your building's performance is. We don't want to put a really expensive renewable system on a building that's leaking through the envelope. It's got poor HVAC, poor lighting. Ultimately, you're going to over-engineer your renewable system and you're going to waste your dollars. So it's really best to make sure that you have a high-performing building and then move on and kind of graduate into renewable energy. Okay. So another thing a comprehensive analysis is going to help you do at the onset is factor in your utility rate structure. Troy will know this as well as any other energy professional that your utility rate can make or break a project, especially a renewable energy project. So it's really important that you're taking a look at that. Energy professionals might also be able to advocate for options that you might be eligible for in changing your rate. We had a school district that we did a rate analysis for them, and we found that they could change the rate at their utility, and they were able to find about $2,000 in savings per year, and that's just by switching a rate. Costed very little for us to do the review of their utility bills. They changed the rate and there were immediate savings right there. So again, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit for you to capture, and it's good to capture that before you start investing significant dollars into your building. Also, non-energy benefits are really impactful on your bottom line. These are things that energy professionals are very adept at finding, and when they work with you and your team and understand your operations, they're going to help you both identify those and oftentimes quantify. Sometimes these are difficult to quantify. One example I've got up here is, LED lighting upgrades gave grocers a 19% boost in sales. When we improve the color rendering in our lighting, it makes our products look better. People buy more products. HVAC projects have been known to improve air quality, which can have a significant impact on productivity and attendance. So there's a number of things that these investments are going to offer that are going to really benefit your operation and your customers, your employees. So comprehensive analysis is going to factor those things in and make sure that you have a very good look at the benefits of your project. Okay, so as an energy professional, I could probably spend the entire time talking about the value of engineering and energy analysis, but I digress. I know we want to get into some financing options for you guys. But here's some resources for you guys to check it out. Obviously, the Energy Group and other energy professionals are knowledgeable and really good resources for y'all. But there's also free resources available too if you've got the time and you've got the folks on staff. So Small Business Administration's Green Business Guide is really great. They've got some best business practices for sustainability. It's worth a Google, check them out. ASHRAE has produced some advanced energy design guides, both for existing facilities and new construction. Department of Energy and the energy efficiency and renewable energy pages, those are pretty incredible. Your utility provider can sometimes be a good resource. Take that with a grain of salt. Consider the fact that they're selling energy, that's their job, but they also have energy efficiency programs that they're required to provide. There is more resources available as well, and I'll try to trickle them throughout the presentation, but here's just a few to get started and to look at analysis. Okay, so you've done your homework, you've done a comprehensive analysis, good for you. You know how your building's performing and you have an idea on what your investments are going to do for you. So now it's time to make a business case. Maybe you need to convince decision makers at your facility, or maybe yourself, if you are the decision maker, you just can't quite, make the leap. So putting a business case together for your investment is going to really help give you a lot of confidence in your purchasing decision. So I'm going to kind of go through the I gotta click on, there we go. Okay. The business case steps. So we're going to calculate, I'm going to talk about, calculating cash flows, identifying risks in energy projects, researching financial incentives and opportunities, and then also considering your internal budget before we move into financing vehicles. Okay, I'm confusing myself. There we go. Okay. All right. So first step is recognizing cash flows associated with energy projects. There's both positive and negative cash flows in most energy projects. Positive cash flows would be, the actual dollar savings you're going to achieve from your investment, utility savings, including water, operating and maintenance savings, equipment salvage value, if that's applicable. Also financial incentives and rebates that buy down the first cost or maybe provide other incentives for you. Those are all really good benefits. And like I mentioned, non-energy benefits also kind of go over here, but when they're difficult to quantify, they don't exactly make it onto your accounting sheet. Negative cash flows could include the purchase and installation costs, disposal costs if possible, the cost of analysis planning and your design team. Do not skimp on this. You really want to be very confident in these investments. You want them to pay off. And there's a number of variables that I'll discuss when I talked about risk mitigation and risk factors, but don't shortchange yourself on the analysis, planning, and design. And I will note that there's a number of programs that cover the cost of these professional services, whether it's a utility program or I believe, USDA, which Kristen's going to talk about later. There are a number of programs that include your energy study and your energy analysis, and you can get that for free or at a reduced cost. So make sure you're including plenty of money in your budget for that and factoring that in, but don't skimp yourself. Also, your measurement and verification costs. We want to make sure that when we're spending a significant amount of money improving our buildings, that we have a return on that investment. If we don't measure and we're not consistently measuring and fine tuning these systems, we're wasting money. So you want to make sure that you have some money set aside for measurement and verification, following construction of your projects. Now, this may be a requirement depending on which program assists you in financing or where you're getting your dollars, and it may be a requirement. It could also be something that you get for free, depending on which mechanism you choose, but it certainly is a cost that you want to factor in. And then also the replacement costs at the end of life of these systems are another cost to consider. Okay, so we also want to consider the risks associated with energy projects and make sure that we understand this fully. And then we want to engage everyone that can help us mitigate these risks. Risk factors can include, rate increases that we have no control over, operator error, occupants abusing systems, which, that could even be, not shutting off lights or, messing with set points and overriding systems, improper installation, or just natural equipment degradation or system failure. A lot of these things can change your project cash flow. And so you would just want to make sure that you recognize them and put things in place to mitigate them as much as possible. So things to consider is who's operating your building systems? Are they adequately trained? Engage them at the beginning of these projects so that they understand what's coming down the pipeline and that they understand the systems that you're installing and they have adequate training to operate them. Who's using your building? Let's make sure they understand that you're making this investment, why you're making this investment, and why their participation in ensuring that your building performs optimally is important to them. And some of this, for an example, in a company could be, hey, y'all like to have your company party at the end of the year. And if our building performs over a certain, percentage, then, we could have a little extra fun at the party. There's incentives like that. Businesses do everything from, small incentives like that to, more of the kind of like the stick approach. So there's a number of ways that you can engage and motivate folks and make sure they understand that you're making these investments and it's important that, they have a role. I will say that occupants and building operators can diminish savings just as much as failed equipment and improper installation can. So do not overlook the power of engaging everybody that's touching your building and your building systems as a form of risk mitigation. And then also consider what kind of oversight and measurement is already in place just to be checking in. Retro commissioning is pretty great, or having somebody come in and just double checking that your system, monitoring and verification is a really good tool because you can just make sure that when things aren't lining up the way that you've estimated, you can intervene and you can put things in place, call your contractor, get something going. So that way you don't see a huge uptick on your bill and watch your savings diminish. Okay. So I've also got some low-cost methods for managing uncertainty and energy savings. This is provided by the National Renewable Energy Lab. And this is just some examples of things that you can do to mitigate risks. Having certain set points, maybe even some people even put like dummy thermostats if they have a large facility and large operations. Regularly checking and confirming that the building is being used as intended. So there's a number of things that you can do to put into place to mitigate, the risk of, not meeting your energy savings goals and possibly defaulting on a loan if that's the financing route that you took. So this is available on NREL's A Guide to Help Lenders Understand and Communicate the Value of Energy Efficiency Investments. You're welcome to go check that out. Okay. All right. So now we've had the study, we've got our business case started. We know we've kind of calculated our cash flows. We're looking at risks, and now it's time to kind of start researching financial incentives and financial opportunities that might exist to further improve the cash flow of our project. So here's just some tips for financial incentives. Always check with your utility provider. That's just a no-brainer. There's a lot of utility programs that are either mandated or just offered because, they're doing the right thing. So check with your utility provider and see what's available. There's rebates that buy down the cost. There's incentives that help you with design and planning. There's a number of things. One of the most important reasons to check with your provider before you purchase or install, I will say this, never purchase or install equipment before receiving written pre-approval for whatever entity is providing you any kind of incentive or rebate. You do not want to disqualify yourself from a lot of dollars. Some of these rebates can exceed $30,000. Do not disqualify yourself for a technicality because you purchased equipment or you signed an agreement with a contractor and that was against the rules of the program. So make sure that you're reading the fine print, you understand what minimum equipment requirements are, what the timelines are for application. This is just gonna help you make sure that you get that rebate, get that incentive, and you can maximize your rebate. Sometimes just kind of jumping up from 92% efficiency to 96% efficiency could have a big jump in your rebate. So make sure you're considering that as well. So look for rebates that buy now purchase costs, anything that covers professional services. There's grants, there's tax incentives like Troy mentioned, there's below market loans and a lot of other incentives that we can leverage. And I'll be talking about more of that stuff in a bit. But just don't overlook, those things and consider your manufacturer. Your contractor might have rebates as well. And then there's local, state, and federal programs as well as the utility. So a lot of areas for you to look, which is a good thing. It's just make sure you're kind of really comprehensive and finding these opportunities to leverage. Okay, so when it comes to new construction, it's especially important to check with your utility provider first. There's a number of new construction programs that exist, and they offer custom rebates for kind of a whole building energy efficiency. Oftentimes they provide assistance for planning and design, and then you get bonus rebates, bonus dollars just because you've taken a comprehensive look at your building. So always check with your utility first. If your service provider has a program, make sure you're looking at that, seeing if it's valuable, seeing if it's worth the work. And you can always call folks like us because, we're familiar with these programs. Okay, so here's some more resources to get started in this step. At least finding some of these financial opportunities that exist. DesireUSA.org is a really great resource. Sometimes it's a little bit dated, so you do definitely want to, if you find an opportunity that you think applies to your sector, your industry, or your area, just make sure you're kind of follow through and click through Desire's website because sometimes they have a little dated information on there. ACEEE has a financing website. This is a nonprofit. They publish a lot of white papers. They have a lot of reliable, credible information in terms of energy efficiency, renewable energy, and they have a financing website that kind of provides a bit of a guide on some of the both traditional and specialized financing mechanisms that exist. Small Business Administration, they have a loan program info, they have design assistance, they have a team of folks that can work with you. I would definitely check in and see if that's a good fit as well. USDA, and I know Kristen's going to spend some time talking about this, but they have a number of resources available specifically for rural and ag business, for rural businesses and ag businesses. There's grants, there's assistance, and those folks are really great to work with. They have teams of people all over the state. And, you know, we've worked with a number of customers applying for grants and low interest loans through those programs. So there's also companies like us, you know, we can help do the legwork for you and bring all that, bring all these resources together and just save you the time. But here's just a few examples. Okay, so you've done your research, you know what rebates, incentives, and different kind of programs exist and might apply to your project or your building, your sector. Now we want to consider our internal budget. Internal funding is the simplest and most direct option for owners without question. Now put aside the split incentive challenge. Those of you who own buildings and then lease those to tenants, you guys experience a certain challenge and a barrier to energy efficiency. And there are some financing mechanisms that have overcome that, which we'll talk about later. But without question, make sure that you're considering your internal funding first. So this is going to help you capture the full financial benefits of your energy investments because you're not paying a financial provider. And you can leverage future operating budget dollars if you don't have a capital budget for a project now. And then there's a lot of different avenues that you can take in terms of using your internal budget. I'm going to talk through some of these right now. It's also a good route to self-fund these projects because, I mean, maybe you can't seek external financing due to debt limits or other restrictions on financing. Maybe you want to make sure you're capturing that full economic benefit. So there's a number of reasons why you might choose this. But there's also a number of reasons why you can't. So I'm going to just briefly talk about some of the internal avenues that folks have used in the past that are pretty common. Okay, so the first is using your operating or capital budget. So there's different things that you can do. Couple common ones are empowering branches or locations to identify improvements and fund with a budget of their own. You can also create an expedited approval process and kind of streamline. You really want to just streamline this process for your branches, your locations, or your sites. You can do things like setting up parameters for these projects. Like you have to meet a certain ROI requirement. You want to cap projects at a certain amount. You can provide tools and resources that ensure there's consistent engineering and design for projects. The advantages to this are that you're going to use existing processes. You don't have extensive setup or management. You're certainly not paying, a financial provider interest. So there's some savings there. Then again, this is not going to guarantee funding for future projects unless you have a really comprehensive long-term plan. And existing processes could move a little bit slowly and need to be updated. So depending on what it's like for you to get projects approved currently and whether or not you already have a good ethic of sustainability and supporting energy efficiency and energy management, it could take a little bit of time to kind of get this going. So another option for internal funding is a self-funded energy performance contract. I'll go into more depth on a performance contract later. So if you're not familiar, I apologize that this is kind of a little ahead of the horse. But energy performances contract is really one of the most common methods of implementing energy efficiency. It's been around forever. It's well established, but essentially, in a nutshell, the customer partners with a company who scopes, develops, and implements measures on their behalf. Typically, the auditing and the analysis and all that up front is included. The energy services company guarantees savings and then manages the upgrades post-construction. So oftentimes, the These arrangements are backed by financing, but some customers choose to pay for the installation out of pocket, which avoids interest payments and time spent, securing financing. So I'll get into performance contracts a little bit later, but a self-funded performance contract is another route that you can take if you want to fund a project on your own.
Emily, this is Dan. Just want to give you a heads up on your time. You have about 15 more minutes, okay? And I know
Okay, great.
Yep. So keep that in mind.
Yep, okay. All right, so another option is a capital investment fund. So these are special funds designed to fund energy projects within your facility. It'll deliver net profit. Cash savings are retained in the operating budget. There's some advantages to this, but a disadvantage is, replenishing the funds may be difficult to get buy-in. So I'm just gonna kind of whip through these a little bit faster and not go into so much detail. And if folks have questions, we can get to that later. Okay, another option is a revolving loan fund. This differs from a capital investment fund just a little bit because your cash savings are reinvested into the fund. This has been a tool for the public sector for a lot of years. It's very valuable. One of the biggest advantages is that this fund can grow over time because your savings persist. When you install a project, those savings are going to persist for the life of that equipment. And so it just helps grow that fund. So sometimes you might get difficulty getting buy-in, but if you have the funds and you can set up a revolving loan fund, it's a really good option. Another option, some of you may have heard of carbon pricing, but you can do this internally and essentially internalize environmental and social costs of your footprint. This is a really great fit for companies that have a robust, energy efficiency goal. This can be done in a few different ways. A couple common methods are providing a real price to carbon and then, basically, fining or charging, your different departments or branches and then funding energy projects based on that, those dollars. You can also just do a price signal that'll really just inform you on building performance. And then you can prioritize your investments based on the lowest performing buildings and get the biggest bang for your buck that way too. Okay, so for a number of reasons, internal funding may not be available or the best fit. I recognize that, but if you have the cash on hand, if you can achieve your goals and meet, your internal investment needs, seriously consider self-funding. Okay, so now I'm going to get into some different financing vehicles. This is kind of an overview. This is provided by Better Buildings Institute, just really good way to get a general idea of the different opportunities that exist. So there's a number of the landscape for financing energy projects is rapidly growing. It's rapidly evolving. There's more and more specialized options that are designed specifically to fund energy projects and overcome typical barriers. So we've got traditional financing that folks are probably gonna be very familiar with. We can breeze through those options because they function just like typical loan or lease, but the specialized financing options are the ones that are most exciting. And so without ado, we'll get into some of that. Okay. All right, so first of all, you can get a capital operating solar or tax exempt lease to fund your project. This works like most leases. You're gonna arrange financing via contractor, manufacturer, or third party. You're gonna pay for the installation equipment. You're gonna make regular fixed payments. And at the end, you can either purchase, return, or extend your contract. So this is a really valuable way to fund your project if you have the credit worthiness. And if you have a large enough project, oftentimes larger projects are more attractive. And so if you have a lot smaller projects, you might not find a lender willing to fund your project. So another con here is that you're taking on 100% of the risk. Some of these different options, you're offloading the risk of your project and of your investment, and that's a big benefit. My mouse does not work for this. Okay. All right. So just a few different differences between, capital operating leases. Customer, you're going to own the equipment and you're going to lease the payment, and the lease payment will be a liability if you do capital. If you do an operating, the lessor is going to own the equipment and then you pay rent, which is tax deductible and an operating expense. The downside is you're going to have to pass several FASB tests for this. There's a tax exempt option for the public sector. This is really valuable and it's used quite frequently. And then there's also solar operating leases, which is a really great alternative to power purchase agreements, which I'll talk about a little bit if we have time. But what's nice about a solar operating lease is it's much simpler than a power purchase agreement. The lessor owns the equipment, just like a power purchase agreement, customer rents it. But this is just a much simpler alternative. Okay, loans. Everybody here, I'm sure, is familiar with loans. There's both market and below market opportunities. Again, your credit worthiness could be a con. There's really no specialized benefit in terms of energy investments. You're going to bear 100% of the risk as the customer, and there may be debt limitations, but these are really widely available. They've been in the market forever. They're simple in structure, and the enterprise scale financing is really great. If you have multiple branches or multiple sites and you want to do a lighting project across the board, there's some really good financial incentive to do that. You can have bulk pricing, you can hire one contractor. There's definitely some advantages in terms of the cost of your project. And so to have a financing mechanism that will work there is really important. A lot of the other mechanisms that we're going to talk about are typically backed by loans. When we talk about a performance contract, I'll talk a little bit about PACE and on-bill structures, but anyway, it's a good avenue. Below market solutions are really great, and there's a number of opportunities here that I've listed, but these could include, low to no interest loans that are available, grants that are available. There's some local ones, in the state of Iowa. So definitely keep an eye out. And like I mentioned, that desireusa.org website is a really great resource to find what might be applicable to your facility. Okay. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I just want to mention it. On-bill financing and repayment programs are really great. Essentially, this is you paying for a project directly on your utility bill, and it can either be funded by public utility or ratepayer funds or by third party. The only downside is that you've got to have buy-in and participation from a utility, and there's not a lot of that available here. I do want to mention it because I think it's important our business community knows what solutions are working in other states and around the country, so we can advocate for solutions that work for us. These can be really, really great because they're really great for lease spaces, and it can kind of help overcome that split incentive barrier because you can pass through the cost of your project into the tenant. That's not available for a lot of these other financing options. The transferability of debt is also really a great benefit here because when you leave your facility, the next tenant is going to both benefit from the energy efficiency project, so they should pay for the energy efficiency project and just take over those payments. That makes a lot of sense. And with a lot of these financing mechanisms, that's not the case. And it has delayed folks from investing in energy projects because they might not be in their building for 3 years, 4 years. We hear that as an excuse all the time. Solutions like this help to overcome that challenge. So I mentioned already a little bit about performance contracting. This is essentially where a company is going to guarantee your savings. They're going to help you design the project, implement the project, and then they're going to help ensure that you have those savings following construction. It reduces the risk for the owners and it outsources project management, which definitely can come with a hefty price tag. Again, this is a really rigorous market. It's very well established. ESCOs have been around forever. So this is just something that's tried and true. All right, now I'm going to talk about a couple specialized options. Energy service agreements are pretty exciting to me because they have a number of advantages. So essentially you have an energy service provider who partners with a customer, and then that provider takes on the responsibility of finding a contractor or energy services group that's going to perform and install the work and then manage the savings of the project. So they're going to verify that you have savings. There's an alternate form that's called a managed energy service agreement, which is very similar, but essentially the ESA provider takes on the additional role of just managing your utility bills on your behalf. So they just take over managing your energy bills in addition to managing the project, managing the contractor. A lot of advantages here because when they do that, again, that brings in that transferability of debt. They can pass through charges to tenants. So this also overcomes that split incentive. If any of you guys have, you lease your property to someone, this structure is really, really good for that because it does overcome that split incentive barrier. So in general, a lot of advantages to these. Savings pay for the project quite literally. When we talk about energy efficiency, you're oftentimes, you're not going to be over investing in projects that aren't going to pay for themselves, but your savings literally pay for the project. In your contract, your payment is based on the savings that are achieved. So that the energy service provider, they have not only a vested interest, but a contractual interest and requirement to ensure that you're achieving savings. So they're monitoring your energy bills. They're making sure that your investment is delivering savings, and then they're making corrections so that happens so that they can get paid. This is a really, really great and exciting model, and it started in early 2000s. Project size can be quite larger. That might be a disadvantage, but there's a number of advantages to this approach. Okay. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on commercial PACE because it's not here in Iowa, but I will say that it should be. All of our neighbors, with few exceptions, have a commercial PACE program. This is enacted by the legislature, and then it has voluntary uptake or administration by local jurisdictions. This is a property assessed clean energy, so you're paying for your project or loan on your property. Again, transferability of debt to the new owner. There's low interest rates, secure financing, very low default. It's a private-public partnership, very, very good. We really need to be advocating for this to be here in the state of Iowa, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. Power purchase agreements. These are, they've been around here in Iowa since 2014, when the Iowa Supreme Court upheld that they should be allowed, especially for PV. These can be very complicated contracts, and you can risk overpayment due to increased rate over the life of agreement. So pay attention to the fine print. If you're going to engage in a power purchase agreement with someone, make sure you understand what your rate's going to be, have a good idea what that rate might be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years for the entire life of that, that investment. But they are a really great opportunity. Essentially, you're going to contract with a third-party developer who's going to purchase the equipment. They're going to manage the equipment. And then you're still going to be connected to your utility provider, who's going to provide electricity or energy when you need it, when your system underperforms, or when your renewable system isn't meeting your needs. Okay, so this is a lot. There's a lot of options available. How do you choose which one is right for you? I thought this was a cute infographic that Bob Hinkle provided at a presentation with ACEEE. I guess there's a number of questions you can ask, but number one, if you have the cash on hand and you don't have a better way to use that cash, self-fund. If you have certain financing or balance sheet constraints, look for a lease. If there's more strategic uses for your balance sheet than energy efficiency, then you might want to go into an ESA or an MESA. Or you can call somebody like us and we can help you figure it out. It is difficult to look at all these different options, and then, maybe I'm just throwing more at folks, but there's a lot of options available, and guaranteed there's an option that makes sense for your business size and your operation and where you're located. So if you want to find this, you can definitely look this up, and I just thought this was cute and it's useful. So
Emily, to be conscious of time, if you could wrap it up in about 5 minutes, that'd be enough time for our last speaker, please.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've got just a few resources I was going to share with y'all. Just to let you know what's available locally. So the Iowa Area Development Group Energy Bank is a revolving loan fund that's available in Iowa. And rather than kind of going to each of these websites, since I don't have time, I'll just kind of leave them here with you. And I believe folks will have an opportunity to receive these presentations, so then you can check them out later. Bright Energy Solutions, it isn't a loan fund, but it is a very broad rebate program that a lot of utilities in Iowa are tapped into, and they've got a great website. Core Belt Power Cooperative also has a loan fund. There's a number of utility rebate programs that buy down the cost of these projects and provide funding assistance, design assistance, planning assistance. So again, check with your utility for sure. There's a number of state and federal tax incentives, like Troy mentions, not just for renewable energy, but also for energy efficiency investments. Yeah, a lot of resources available for folks. IEDA has an alternate energy evolving loan program. I saw there was one IEDA person on staff. I'm not sure if they're going to have another round coming out, but this has been a really good program for Iowans. Here's some more resources and references so you can find some more information about what's available. I think the best first place to start if you want to find, what could be available in your area is that desireusa.org. So check that out. And with that, I'll wrap up.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Emily, if you want to unshare your screen.
Yep.
And our final speaker today will be Kristen Kaufman from the USDA to talk about some of the programs that their organization has for energy saving projects. Kristen, if you want to share your screen.
All right, Dan, does that look good?
No,
Or are you seeing it backwards?
We're seeing it
Okay.
backwards. Don't feel bad. I messed up my screen sharing earlier on, so it all gets worked out. Okay, just go to display presentation mode.
Oh, great. It's showing up on my other screen.
We'll get it figured out. Can you drag it over?
I drug the notes over, but it doesn't. I wonder if I can do it.
There's a way to swap on the top left.
On the top left.
That's where it was for me. I don't see it right there, but there's a way to swap.
Is it good? Okay.
Sorry, guys. I don't even need to see the notes, but you guys don't want to see them probably. Try to see them.
Well, while Emily's working on this, again, if you have any questions for any of our speakers, please put them in the question and answer section of the Zoom, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentations. You go down to share screen and Kristen.
Yep. How's that? Is that any better?
It's in notes mode, but I think we can probably deal with that. We're okay with it.
How's that?
No? Perfect.
Is that okay? There we go. Sorry, guys. So diving right in the interest of time, this is going to be a great piggyback off of what Emily just went through. What I'm going to talk about is what USDA Rural Development has available in our energy programs for funding. This is something for projects that have already explored their options and now they're starting to look for what funding resources are out there. So the Rural Development Energy Programs came about in the 2002 Farm Bill, and it all started with the 9006 program. And in the 2008 Farm Bill is when the Section 9007, or what we currently call the Rural Energy for America program, came about. And also in that 2008 Farm Bill, they started the 9003 Biorefinery Assistance Program, the 9004 Repowering Assistance Program, and then the 9005 Bioenergy Program for Advanced Biofuels. In 2018, that Farm Bill did drop the 9004 Repowering Assistance Program. So now we look at 3 energy programs at rural development. Anybody that's looking for additional information on these, if you're not able to contact me or one of our area offices, there are fact sheets, application materials, regulations, all that kind of stuff available on our website at www.rd.usda.gov. And all of those 4 programs can be found on there. The Section 9007 or Rural Energy for America program, REAP, provides grants and guaranteed loan funding for ag producers and rural small business to install renewable energy systems and energy efficiency improvements. Those 2 eligible applicants are ag producers, which would be an individual or entity that receives 51% or more of their income from ag production. One thing to note about ag production, custom hire is not considered ag production for this program. And then the second type of applicant is a rural small business. So the rural small businesses have to meet the SBA size standard based on their NAICS for their industry, and they also have to be located in a rural area of less than 50,000 people. And we have 2 types of typical REAP grant assistance. Those go for renewable energy system projects and energy efficiency improvements. The minimum grant for renewable energy systems is $2,500 and the maximum is $500,000. And energy efficiency improvements, the minimum grant is $1,500 and the maximum $250,000. And those grants, the amount is determined based on 25% of total eligible project costs being the maximum amount, or we do have a lot of applicants that will request a smaller amount to increase their score under payback or to qualify for some of our smaller funding pools. Our REAP Guaranteed Loan Program has a minimum of $5,000 or a maximum of $25 million. And with this guaranteed loan program, it's much like a lot of other guaranteed loan programs where rural development works directly with a commercial lender rather than the applicant. So for a guaranteed loan, the applicant goes out and finds a lender, and then that lender will apply for a REAP guarantee if needed from our programs. And the rates and terms are negotiated between the lender and the borrower. We don't get involved in those discussions. And the guaranteed loan can be up to 75% of total eligible project costs. And to backstep just a bit, we do have a few other guaranteed loan programs, and the intent of a federal guaranteed loan program is to fill a gap where a commercial lender is not always comfortable on making a loan without a guarantee. So our guarantee helps minimize the risk for a lender. So oftentimes they can offer longer terms, higher dollar loans, or maybe a lower interest rate where otherwise they may not have been able to. Eligible technologies under the energy efficiency improvements include lighting, heating, cooling, ventilation, fans, automated controls, insulation, basically anything that an energy audit can document an energy savings could fall under an energy efficiency improvement. So I went out to some training at NREL last year, and they were talking about replacing belts and things of that nature. So any equipment that you can document an energy savings would be eligible for the REAP program. Renewable energy projects are things such as solar, wind, small hydroelectric, anaerobic digesters, biomass, geothermal, and wave and ocean power that we obviously don't have here in Iowa. Some project cost considerations for the typical REAP program. Equipment purchases are eligible, but they have to be new or refurbished. Used equipment is not eligible. Post-application costs are eligible. Anything that is spent prior to submitting a complete application to rural development is not eligible. So just like Emily said, make sure that you vet out your project, know what you're going to do, and then get those commitments from your funding sources before you install the project. Because if you install the project, sometimes some of those funding sources then become ineligible. Retrofitting is an eligible cost, professional service fees, permits and license fees. And then for the guaranteed loan program, there are some situations where we can provide minimal amounts of working capital or land acquisition in those loans. Ineligible projects include residential energy projects. We're not able to do residential projects under our rural development programs. Pre-application costs, like I said, are ineligible. The preparation or grant writer fees are not eligible to be included as part of the grant. Lines of credit, lease payments, or any payments to the applicant, business owner, beneficiary, or relative are unable to be covered under the grant program. A few project examples. You saw some examples earlier of that large solar array. Here's a small solar array that was installed by a rural vet clinic to replace 92% of their annual energy usage. They got a $30,000 750 REAP grant. They installed 2 ground mount solar arrays. And we have some wind projects in Iowa. This example installed a 90 kilowatt wind turbine. It generated almost 2 times the farm's annual energy use with a $20,000 REAP grant. And they do sell their excess production to the energy grid to help offset some of their other farm costs. A renewable energy system example of an anaerobic digester. This is a 1 megawatt anaerobic digester that processes about 600,000 gallons of animal waste into electricity per year. They received a $100,000 REAP grant and a $2.65 million REAP guarantee for their anaerobic digestion product. And one thing that is near and dear to our hearts at rural development and in many small communities around Iowa is the viability of the rural grocery stores. And one thing that some rural grocers have found recently is replacing their refrigeration units and their lighting really helps reduce that bottom line cost. So this particular example was able to reduce their annual energy usage by 71% just by installing energy efficient refrigeration units. It lowered their overhead costs, and they were able to receive a $15,873 REAP grant to assist with that project. And we've had a few car dealerships in Iowa that have replaced their lighting with some high efficiency LED bulbs. This particular one got a $6,126 REAP grant, and they reduced their annual energy usage by 87%. And then of course we always have the grain dryers that apply, the ag producers applying for the grain dryers. This is not a grain dryer program, but grain dryers are eligible because they do save energy when those are upgraded. This example received a little over $11,000 and he reduces his annual energy usage by 59%. And then another example of a rural grocer, they replaced their coolers as well and got some new lighting and did a geothermal heating system. With a $49,650 REAP grant, they were able to reduce their annual usage by 40%. Checking the time. Okay, I don't have too much left, so we'll have time at the end for sure for questions. Another aspect of the REAP program is the Energy Audit and Renewable Energy Development Assistance grants. So these grants also assist rural small businesses and ag producers by conducting and promoting energy audits and providing the renewable energy development assistance. What's different about this program is who applies. So applicants for the EA REDA program are state and local governments, federal tribes, land grant colleges or universities, rural electric co-ops, public power entities, or instrumentalities of the state or local government. And what those applicants do is provide or conduct energy audits or renewable energy development assistance for small businesses and ag producers. So those studies would help the ag producers and small businesses identify ways to improve their energy efficiency or renewable energy technologies that they could implement. The maximum grant assistance under this part of the program is $100,000. Assistance has to be provided to ag producers or small businesses, and the rural small businesses do have to be located in an eligible rural area. One caveat on this, the grantee that conducts energy audits does have to require the recipient to pay 25% of the energy audit cost as part of the match. Eligible costs are the salaries and travel related to conducting the assistance, office supplies, and a small amount of administrative expenses. You cannot, with this program, purchase equipment, pay for construction, pay for any judgments or debt owed to the government, cannot pay for anything that has a conflict of interest. Any pre-application costs are not eligible, and political and lobbying activities are not eligible. Application deadlines for REAP. November 2nd is the first deadline, and that is for the grant requests, the REAP grant request of $20,000 or less. February 1st of 2021 will be the EA RETA application deadline, and then March 31st of 2021 will be the second REAP grant deadline. So the March 31st deadline, applicants can request any size under 20,000 up to the maximum. And then we have a continuous application cycle for the REAP guaranteed loans. And real quickly, I'm going to touch on 2 other energy programs and then wrap it up so we can have some questions. The Section 9005 Advanced Biofuel Producer Payment Program supports increased production of advanced biofuels through payments to eligible advanced biofuel producers. So who can apply? Advanced biofuel producers are eligible to apply if they have a liquid gas or solid product derived from renewable biomass other than corn kernel starch. It has to be a final product, and it has to be produced in the United States. So any entities that merely blend advanced biofuels into a blended biofuel are not considered eligible under 9005. They have to actually produce the biofuel. And these are quarterly payments based on the quantity of biofuel produced. There's no minimum or maximum payment. It's simply the amount is dependent upon the funding available, and then the BTUs each biofuel producer reports for a specific quarter. And the application deadline for this program is October 31st of 2020. Now the last program I'm going to touch on real quick is the Section 9003 Biorefinery Renewable Chemical and Bio-Based Product Manufacturing Assistance Program. This is a guaranteed loan program that provides funding to assist in the development, construction, and retrofitting of new and emerging technologies. So the maximum guaranteed loan under this program is $250 million, or 80% of total eligible project cost. Again, it's a guaranteed loan program, so we work directly with a commercial lender. Eligible projects are commercial scale biorefineries, bio-based product manufacturing facilities that use technologically new commercial scale processing. So one example that we've seen in Iowa on this was a few years back. It was an entity that was planning to take municipal solid waste and make it into an advanced biofuel. To give you an idea of what this program does. This program, there are very few applicants every year, so that it is handled out of the DC office, and the contact is on your screen. It's Aaron Morris, and his contact information is also on our website. And this is just something interesting that I threw in there. It's the USDA Energy Investment Map, and if you want to go out there sometime and take a look at it, you can narrow down by state what types of technology USDA is putting their funding into most often. And again, I am the energy coordinator for Iowa Rural Development. So any of these programs, you can contact me, and I would be happy to talk to you about your project or get you application materials or just bounce ideas off of. And that is all I have, so we can open it up and have 13 minutes for questions.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kristen. If the attendees, if you have questions, please put them in the question and answer box. At this point, I don't see any questions, but we'll wait here a minute or two to see if any come in. As I said, we will be uploading all these presentations to the IWRC's energy webpage in about a day or so. So if you would like a copy, you can download them. Okay. Well, I am not seeing any questions. And if you do have a question that you think of later, you could email me through the IWRC website. My email is nikki@uni.edu, and I can make sure the speakers get to them. And their contact information as well will be on the presentations that you can download. I'm not seeing any questions for the speakers, so I guess we're going to end this webinar. I'd like to thank our speakers, and I hope all the attendees found the webinar to be educational, and look for notifications on possible future energy assistance webinars from the IWRCs. We will be posting slides on the IWRC website, like I mentioned, and you'll also be receiving a evaluation this afternoon or tomorrow regarding the webinar. Please complete it because it really does help us out a lot on deciding whether or not to have future webinars and what those topics will be. And at that, I will close the webinar out and like to thank all of our speakers for attending today. Thank you very much. And hope to see you guys all soon again, real soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.